Luke grew up in an orphanage, knowing nothing about his parents. His mother, hospitalized without documents, disappeared immediately after giving birth. As a baby, Luke lagged in growth and was often sickly, so no adoptive parents came forward for him. Despite a challenging childhood, he grew into an intelligent, goal-oriented young man. He constantly reminded himself that he would become successful one day. Other children laughed at his dreams, but years later, Luke indeed succeeded. Upon leaving the orphanage, Luke worked tirelessly. A quick-witted individual, he quickly recognized the potential of e-commerce. His internet store soon became a leading business in the country, and Luke became a millionaire. Despite his success, he remained humble and never forgot the orphanage where he grew up. On holidays, he brought many treats and toys for the children, hired performers for play performances, and aimed to brighten their lives, even if only a little. However, he was painfully aware that he could never provide them with the one thing they needed most, a family, which he had always longed for. As the years passed, Luke began contemplating having a wife and children. However, he had grown accustomed to living alone and was unsure if he could ever change. Women didn't stay in his life for long, as he felt most were only interested in his wealth. Yet, he dreamed of finding one woman he could love with all his heart, who would genuinely love him in return. One day, Luke arrived at the orphanage with gifts, as usual. The children were outside, and many recognized him, waving excitedly. Luke smiled warmly at them. Suddenly, a small boy, about 5 years old, broke away from the group and rushed towards him. The little boy threw his arms around Luke's legs and cried loudly. The educator tried to distract the child, but he was sobbing, calling Luke, "Daddy," and asking to be taken home. Luke was bewildered. No child had ever overreacted to his presence before, and the boy's words pierced his heart. That day, Luke had planned to discuss repairs with the headmistress, but instead, he hastily handed the bags of gifts to the staff and rushed to his car, claiming urgent matters. In truth, Luke's day was meticulously scheduled, and he could never forget something important. As he got into the car, he realized his hands were shaking. After a moment, he started the engine and drove home, unable to shake the image of the boy from his mind. The boy's face lingered in Luke's thoughts all day. He had never seen the child before, so he must have been a newcomer. But why did he call Luke his father? The thought tormented Luke, and he wondered how the boy felt now, whether he felt abandoned and betrayed again. Luke empathized deeply with all abandoned children and took the orphanage under his patronage. He often told the children that they, like anyone else, were unique and capable of great success, just as he had achieved. The next day, the memory of the little boy who called him Daddy troubled his soul. Luke decided he had to meet with the headmistress and discuss the situation. She greeted him with a smile and immediately apologized for the previous day's incident. She explained that such occurrences were common in the orphanage. Children always hoped to be taken away and waited eagerly for their parents. Luke understood this behavior but couldn't shake the feeling of recognition he saw in the boy's eyes. It seemed as if the boy genuinely believed he had met his father. With a sigh, the headmistress admitted there was something unusual about the situation. The boy's name was Alex, and he had arrived at the orphanage 2 weeks earlier. Even before meeting Luke, Alex had drawn pictures of a man who looked just like him and claimed this man was his father. The headmistress pulled some drawings from a folder on the table. When Luke saw them, his heart sank. The drawings were far from realistic portraits, but they unmistakably featured the characteristic scar on his right cheek, a mark he had received in a school fight years ago. At that moment, Alex's teacher entered the room. She asked Alex about his drawings, and he told her that his mother had described his father and shown him on a big screen on TV. The teacher added quietly that Alex had packed all his belongings the previous day, expecting his father to come for him. The headmistress coughed softly but expressively, trying to signal the young tutor not to say anything unnecessary. She was afraid of scaring off a sponsor who had invested a significant amount of money in the development of the orphanage. After all, anyone could call Luke father, but it didn't necessarily mean he was. Luke examined the drawings again and asked where the boy's mother was. It turned out that no one knew. The child was left on the orphanage's porch without a note. The police were investigating the case but had found no leads. The boy didn't know his last name or his address. Luke sighed heavily and scratched the back of his head. Of course, he had been with women and might have been careless with protection, but having a child seemed fantastic. Yet, if this boy was his son, there was no way Luke would let him grow up in an orphanage. As Luke stepped into the hallway, he encountered the teacher who had been waiting for him. Her name was Sarah, and she was a recent college graduate working at an orphanage. She apologized for her insistence and expressed her deep concern for the boy, who hadn't eaten anything since the previous day. Blushing, Sarah mentioned that she had found a picture of Luke as a child in the archives and noted some similarities between him and Alex. Luke gritted his teeth, handed her his card, and asked her to inquire more about the boy's mother. Then, he said goodbye. That evening, he met with his friend David, who had also grown up in an orphanage, and understood his feelings perfectly. David suggested that Luke take a DNA test to clear up any doubts. Luke thought it was a great idea. Thanking his friend, he decided to call Sarah in the morning and ask her to bring a lock of Alex's hair for analysis. They met at a cafe the next day, and Sarah handed him the material. She was visibly excited, explaining that Alex had been unable to calm down since the previous day despite being a quiet and compliant child during the 2 weeks prior. Sarah was convinced that Alex rushed into Luke's arms for a reason. She hadn't been able to learn much about his mother, only that her name was Grace and that she was sick and cried when she left him. That night, Luke was consumed by memories. Once upon a time, he had known a girl named Grace. They met at a conference where she shared her dream of creating designer outfits and launching her clothing line. Luke had dated her for a week but soon realized he wasn't ready for a serious relationship and stopped answering her calls. That was the end of their brief relationship. Could she be the same Grace? Luke concentrated his efforts on finding information about Grace. Soon, he discovered that she had passed away a week ago in a hospice. The news horrified him, filling him with unbearable shame for how he had treated her. He recalled how he had believed she was sincerely in love with him but had been too afraid of his feelings and the prospect of a serious relationship. So, he had left her, and now, he couldn't even ask for her forgiveness. Thinking about Alex, Luke realized Grace could have had a child with anyone. However, he suddenly understood that it no longer mattered to him. Regardless of the DNA test results, he decided to adopt the boy to atone for his past actions towards Grace. Luke instructed his lawyers to prepare the adoption documents and informed the orphanage director of his decision. Luke was anxious about meeting Alex, knowing he hadn't yet received permission for the adoption. As a single man, he wasn't seen as an ideal candidate for an adoptive parent. A few days later, the DNA results confirmed that Alex was his son. This made the legal process much more straightforward. When Sarah heard the news, she couldn't hold back her tears of joy. She was thrilled that Alex had finally found his father. Luke asked the headmistress to bring the child to him, not wanting to wait for the formalities, and she complied without hesitation. Alex was brought to the office, and Luke squatted down, smiling warmly at the boy. He hugged Alex tightly, looked into his happy eyes, and told him he was taking him home. A month passed, and Luke was adjusting to his new role as a father. Life was gradually settling into a new routine. One night, he dreamt of Grace. In the dream, she told him she forgave and thanked him for not abandoning her son. Though Luke didn't believe in mysticism and understood that the dream manifested in his subconscious, he felt a profound relief. A year later, having fully embraced fatherhood, Luke proposed to Sarah. After the adoption, they had continued to communicate and had grown close. Sarah agreed to become Luke's wife. This time, Luke had figured out his feelings in time and didn't miss the opportunity for love. Soon after, Alex had a little sister. And so, suddenly and unexpectedly, Luke found himself with the family he had always dreamed of. The story of Luke is a profound narrative of redemption, personal growth, and the transformative power of love. It highlights several significant themes. 1. Redemption and guilt *. Luke's journey from guilt over his past actions towards Grace to taking responsibility for her child is a powerful testament to human redemption. Regardless of the DNA results, His decision to adopt Alex shows a deep sense of moral duty and an effort to right his past wrongs. 2. The impact of childhood *. Luke's childhood experience in an orphanage profoundly shapes his character and decisions. His empathy towards Alex and his dedication to supporting the orphanage underscores the lasting impact of childhood experiences and the importance of giving back. 3. Love and connection *. The story illustrates that love can emerge unexpectedly. Luke's relationship with Sarah grows organically from a shared concern for Alex, showing that authentic connections often develop from shared values and mutual respect. 4. Personal growth *. Luke's evolution from a single, successful, lonely man into a loving father and husband highlights personal growth. His ability to confront his past, embrace his responsibilities, and open himself to love demonstrates significant character development. 5. The importance of forgiveness *. The dream sequence with Grace forgiving Luke, whether seen as mystical or psychological, serves as a crucial emotional resolution for Luke. It symbolizes the importance of giving and receiving forgiveness as a means of healing and moving forward. Overall, the story is heartwarming and inspirational, offering hope that it is never too late to change, make amends, and build a fulfilling life filled with love and purpose.